I still remember the sting in my chest when Auntie handed me her neatly folded printed ticket, her fingers shaking as she whispered, "They canceled it," without even telling me. Her voice carried that tiny crack I'd only heard once before, on the day we lost my uncle. It cut straight through me. The travel agent's office reeked of cheap air freshener and arrogance. The moment we walked in, the receptionist glanced up, rolled her eyes, and looked at my elderly auntie like she was a time waster who didn't belong in a premium travel office. I watched her chew gum and smirk, her boredom louder than her words. I stood beside Auntie as the staff at the back counter laughed quietly, not even bothering to hide their whispers. She probably couldn't afford it anyway. The way they said she told me everything. They saw her as less. Auntie's face reddened when the receptionist informed her, with fake sympathy, that her seat had been reassigned to a priority customer, despite her booking it months ago. The word priority stabbed her like an accusation, like she was nothing. The heat climbed up my neck when the woman added, "Refund will take weeks, or she can file a complaint if she feels like wasting her time." She said it like she was doing us a favor by even repeating it. Behind the desk, the manager sat in his glass cabin, pretending to be on a call, but I could see his reflection in the glass watching us, watching her. He didn't move, didn't step out, didn't care. A couple waiting nearby shot Auntie a look of pity, the kind that twists the knife deeper. That pity, more than the insult, made my chest tighten. Auntie, who had worked her whole life with pride, being looked at like a helpless victim. She leaned toward me and whispered, "I saved for years. This was my first holiday since he passed." Her voice broke on the last word. I saw her wipe a small tear with the corner of her sari, trying to hide it from me like she always hid her pain. That single quiet motion, her trying to stay dignified even now, ignited something violent inside me. They didn't just cancel her seat, they canceled her dignity. I slammed the brochure onto the counter so hard, the receptionist flinched. "Explain this," I demanded. She didn't answer. She smirked. The man beside her laughed and muttered, "Another drama?" When they threatened to call security, Auntie tugged my arm gently, her touch soft, pleading. She didn't want a scene. She never wanted to burden anyone. That helplessness, hers and mine, carved itself into me like a wound that would never fully heal. I walked her out of the office as the staff behind us exchanged amused glances, their laughter following us out like a slap. Outside, the sun felt too bright, harsh, almost mocking. Auntie stared at the ground and whispered, "Maybe it's a sign. Maybe I wasn't meant to go." She said it with a resigned smile, the smile of someone who has been told no too many times in life and learned to swallow it. Right there on that hot pavement, I made myself a promise. They would regret making her feel small. Not out of anger alone, but because there's a cost to tearing down someone's dignity, and they had forgotten how expensive that cost could become. My auntie wasn't just a relative to me. She was the woman who held my world together when my own parents were drowning in life's storms. She fed me, guided me, shielded me, quietly stepping into roles no one thanked her for. When I think of childhood, I don't see my parents' faces first. I see hers. I remembered those nights when I studied under a flickering bulb, exhausted and ready to give up. She would walk in, place her warm hand on my back, and whisper, "You can be more." Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried a power that shaped every part of who I became. She gave up her dreams long before I even understood what dreams meant. She once told me she wanted to travel, see the hills of Manar, the backwaters of Aleppo, the beaches of Kovalam, but she traded all of that for my school fees, for groceries, for electricity bills. Every time my parents couldn't make ends meet, she filled the gap without a word. After my uncle died without warning, I watched her quiet strength stretch even further. She began sewing clothes late into the night, the pedal of her old machine thumping through the walls while she pretended she wasn't tired. She carried grief in her eyes, but never let it reach her voice. People took her softness for weakness. I saw relatives borrow money and vanish. I saw neighbors demand favors and never offer any. I saw colleagues steal her ideas and then mock her for being too slow to speak up. She never fought back. She just smiled that resigned smile and said, "It's okay, let it go." But it wasn't okay. Not to me. I carried guilt like a shadow, knowing I built my stable career on the foundation of her sacrifices. Every certificate on my wall came from something she sold or something she skipped for herself. So when she finally said, shyly, almost whispering, "I've been thinking, maybe I could go to Kerala once. Just once." It broke me. She said it like she was asking permission to exist. I didn't think twice. I booked her ticket with pride. I imagined her relaxing by the ocean, finally breathing freely after decades of suffocating responsibilities. But that travel agency's cruelty, that smug cancellation, it ripped open every silent wound she had endured. I saw her shoulders slump the same way they did the day she sold her gold bangles, her last pieces of jewelry, for my school fees. And suddenly, I was back in that old memory. Her standing at a bank counter years ago, the teller insulting her for not understanding a form. She had walked out pretending she had allergies as tears streamed down her face. I remembered being a child, pressing my hand into hers, promising myself that one day I would grow strong enough to stand up for her, to protect her, to make the world treat her the way she deserved. Her hurt became my fuel. That quiet heartbreak, the one she always hid, turned into the fire that burned in my chest after the travel agency humiliated her. This wasn't about a canceled ticket anymore. It was about dignity. Hers, stolen again and again by a world that assumed kindness was weakness. She had spent her whole life believing she wasn't allowed to want more. And now I was done watching her shrink herself for others. It was time to show her, and every single person who mocked her, how wrong they were, and how expensive their disrespect was about to become. The next morning, when I called the travel agency for clarity, they put me on hold for 23 silent, mocking minutes before the line clicked and went dead. No apology, no explanation, just a deliberate cut, as if we weren't worth their time. I called again, my jaw tight, and this time the manager answered. His voice came through sharp and superior. "Look," he said, "we had to give that seat to a VIP client. Your auntie can take the refund." The way he emphasized VIP, as if my auntie was disposable, made something inside me twist. I forced my voice to stay steady and asked for the refund timeline. He responded in that lazy, mechanical tone, 30 to 45 business days, like he had delivered that line 100 times and never cared once about the person on the other end. Auntie stood beside me the entire time, gently touching my hand, whispering, "Leave it. It's okay. I don't want trouble." But the hurt in her eyes sat there like a bruise she was trying to hide. I wasn't letting it go. I contacted the airline directly, desperate for truth, and what they told me made my skin prickle with heat. The agency had deliberately overbooked several tickets. Worse, the airline representative forwarded me a document, proof that they had informed the agency a full week ago. The agency knew, and they said nothing. They let people walk into humiliation like it was routine. That was the moment the story shifted. My frustration cracked open, and fury filled every empty space inside me. I grabbed my keys and drove straight to the agency, but this time I filmed everything from the moment I stepped out of my car. No more quiet suffering, no more invisible wounds. The receptionist's smirk flickered when I said clearly and loudly, "I'm recording everything for consumer court." Her gums stopped moving. Her eyes darted to the manager. He emerged from his glass cabin, trying to look confident, but his voice wavered as he attempted to justify their actions. "We did nothing wrong. Your auntie was difficult." That word, difficult, aimed at the gentlest woman I knew, made my hands tremble with rage. A few customers behind us lifted their phones too, curiosity turning into solidarity. The air thickened, tension humming through the room. Then an older man raised his voice, saying he'd also been cheated by them. The staff tried to hush him, even attempted to push him away from the counter. Phones went up higher, whispers grew louder. The lies they'd hidden behind started unraveling out in the open. Auntie clutched my arm again, whispering, "Please, no fight." But this time, I saw something else in her eyes. Years of exhaustion, the weight of being repeatedly dismissed wearing her down. That moment hit me harder than the manager's arrogance. Fighting for her dignity wasn't enough. She deserved more than conflict. She deserved elevation. Not just her canceled trip returned. Not just justice. She deserved a moment that erased every humiliation she had ever swallowed. That night, while she slept in the next room, I sat at my laptop, adrenaline still burning through me. I scrolled through flights, hotels, options beyond anything she'd ever imagined, but nothing felt bold enough. Nothing matched the magnitude of what they'd taken from her. And then I saw it. An unread message in my inbox from a wealthy client I had helped months ago. A message that ended with, "If you ever need support, don't hesitate." My finger hovered above the keyboard. A wild, impossible idea formed, so outrageous, so audacious, so perfect that I felt a slow smile rise on my face. They canceled her ticket. Fine. I would rewrite her journey. In a way they would never forget. The next morning, before the sun even touched the edges of the sky, my phone rang, a sharp, unexpected sound that sliced through the quiet. I picked it up, still half asleep, and heard a familiar voice, the client whose family business I had once dragged back from the brink. A man who had once said, "If you ever need anything, call me," and he meant it. "I saw your message," he said. "Tell me what you need." For a moment, I almost backed out. Almost. But then Auntie's trembling hands, her swallowed pain, her forced smile, all of it flashed in front of me. "A plane," I said. He laughed, an indulgent, casual laugh, until he heard the silence on my end. Until he realized I wasn't exaggerating, I wasn't dreaming, I wasn't asking for a favor, I was demanding justice. He inhaled sharply. "Send me the itinerary," he said. "I'll handle everything." When the call ended, I just sat there, clutching the phone, feeling the air thicken around me. Something huge, something irreversible, had begun to move. When I walked into Auntie's room, she was already awake, sitting by the window. The canceled ticket lay on her lap, her thumb tracing the red "void" stamp like she was touching a wound. She didn't look up when I entered. She didn't have to. I could feel the heaviness in the room. "Auntie," I said softly, sitting beside her, "pack your bags." She blinked at me, startled. "What? Why?" "I rebooked your trip," I said first, testing her hope, testing her heart. But then she asked in the smallest voice I had ever heard, Do I still deserve to go?" Something inside me cracked open. All the humiliation she endured, all the quiet acceptance, all the years she had spent putting everyone else above herself, it crashed into me like a wave. "You deserve the world, Auntie," I whispered. An hour later, when the black luxury SUV rolled to a stop outside our home, she panicked, truly panicked. She grabbed my arm, her voice shaking. "Are they here to arrest us? Because of yesterday, did that manager call the police?" I held her hand. "No, this is for you." The ride felt endless, her eyes darting between the tinted windows and me. When we turned toward the private airfield, she gasped, clutching her bag to her chest. We're lost. This is not the way." But it was. The guards opened the gate without a word, waving us through. Her confusion deepened into fear, then into disbelief. When the SUV finally stopped and the door opened, she stepped out slowly, hesitant, unsteady. And then she saw it. A gleaming private jet, polished like a mirror, waiting. waiting for her. Her name displayed on the welcome board in perfect lettering. A flight crew lined up, their uniforms crisp, their expressions respectful, bowing slightly as they greeted her. "Good morning, ma'am," the captain said. Aunty turned to me, her lips parted, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes, her entire body trembling with shock. In that single breathless moment, everything shifted. The same woman they dismissed, insulted, and humiliated, now standing before a private aircraft with a crew treating her like she was royalty, like she mattered, like she had always mattered. And she still didn't know. The revenge hadn't even begun. Before the jet's engines even began to hum, I stepped a few feet away from the stairs and opened my camera, going live right there on the private airfield. The morning light hit the aircraft behind me like a spotlight, and I knew the world needed to see this. I spoke calmly, every word steady, controlled, edged with truth. I explained everything: the canceled ticket, the disrespect, the deliberate lies, the arrogance that dripped through every phone call. I didn't raise my voice once. I didn't need to. "This," I said, lifting the phone so the jet filled the frame, "is what dignity looks like when you try to deny it." The video exploded online. Within hours, the comment section filled with stories, dozens, then hundreds, former customers exposing the agency's years of fraud, their hidden scams, their mistreatment of elders and travelers who trusted them. Local news channels picked it up. Consumer rights pages reposted the clips over and over again. My phone buzzed non-stop with interview requests. I tagged the airline, and by afternoon, they broke their silence, releasing a statement distancing themselves from the agency, promising an immediate investigation. The consumer court messaged me directly, asking for my documentation, urging me to file a formal complaint. Meanwhile, inside the jet, Aunty sat in a plush cream leather seat, sipping her juice. She smiled shyly every time the flight attendant addressed her as Mrs. Thompson, her cheeks warming with a kind of joy she had forgotten she could feel. I organized every scrap of evidence: the rude calls, the overbooking notice, the airline's warnings, the agency's smirks and lies, into a clean, tight file. No emotion, just facts, sharp enough to cut. When we landed in Kerala, reporters were waiting. Microphones, cameras, curious faces. They didn't want me, they wanted her. And when Aunty stepped down the stairs blinking in the sun, one of them gently asked, "Ma'am, how was your experience?" She blushed, clutching her handbag like it was precious. I just wanted to see the ocean," she whispered. Back home, the dominoes fell hard. Authorities raided the agency, dragging out files, computers, hard drives. The same manager who mocked her, who dismissed her, who treated her like she was nothing, was now caught on video screaming at officers as they sealed the office behind him. Weeks later, when the refund finally arrived, I didn't even hesitate. I donated the entire amount to a senior citizens travel fund under Aunty's name. A forced apology statement circulated online, the agency groveling under legal pressure. But Aunty never even bothered to read it. She was standing barefoot on a beach instead, waves curling around her ankles, the sky opening in front of her, and she was smiling, truly smiling, for the first time in years. During her 7-day trip, something in Aunty shifted, something subtle at first, then unmistakable. Her posture straightened, as if the weight she'd carried her whole life had finally loosened. Her voice sounded steadier when she called, her laughter louder, freer, almost musical. She sent me pictures every day: sunsets melting into the Arabian Sea, boat rides where she held the rail with an excited grin, elephant sanctuaries where she stood with her hands clasped like a delighted child. Every message she sent carried a spark of wonder she had buried for years. When she returned home, the relatives who once ignored her suddenly became eager visitors, pretending they had always cared. Aunty just smiled politely, too content to waste energy on old wounds. That night, when the house grew quiet, She told me the truth behind the tears she'd tried to hide. My uncle had always promised he would take her on a holiday, but life and illness had taken him first. This trip wasn't just a vacation, it was the ending she never got, the closure she had carried like a silent ache for decades. She framed the boarding pass from the private jet and placed it beside his photograph, her fingers resting on the glass as though she was finally completing a conversation left unfinished. Meanwhile, the travel agency's downfall spread through local news like wildfire. People began calling her the Jet Lady, a title that made her laugh and blush all at once. And when she walked through the neighborhood, her head stayed a little higher, her feet a little lighter. For the first time in years, she bought new clothes for herself without apologizing for the expense. I saw how she stopped prefacing her requests with, "if it's not trouble," how she no longer shrank to make others comfortable. The world that once dismissed her innocence now bowed, finally, inevitably, to her worth. My relationship with her deepened too. For the first time, I saw her not just as the woman who raised me, but as someone who had survived quietly, sacrificing dreams for everyone but herself. One evening, she looked at me with a softness that pierced straight through my chest. "I didn't know I was allowed to feel this important," she whispered. "You always were," I said, my voice catching. "They just couldn't see it." Her healing felt like mine too. Proof that justice doesn't always come through courtrooms or headlines. Sometimes it comes in the form of reclaimed joy, rising slowly, beautifully, like the tide returning to shore. I faced the camera from my balcony, the city lights flickering behind me like quiet witnesses. The air is cool, steady, and I can still feel the echo of that day, the moment they laughed at Aunty, and the moment she stepped onto her private jet, her dignity shining brighter than any runway light. I tell my viewers how humiliation can shrink a person, folding them inward until they forget their own worth. But respect, true respect, can rebuild them in ways that feel like resurrection. One small act of cruelty from strangers revealed decades of silent suffering she had carried, hidden behind gentle smiles and soft apologies. Revenge, I say, isn't always about hurting someone back. Sometimes it's about lifting someone so impossibly high that the people who mocked them can't even reach the ground they stand on. That's the real power shift. The receptionist snickering at her sorry versus the flight attendant addressing her as ma'am with genuine reverence. I revisit the turning point call, the one that arrived before sunrise and changed the trajectory of her story. One moment of support, one person willing to stand behind you, can rewrite everything you thought was set in stone. Justice didn't come in a single blow. It came in layers. Legal action that exposed their fraud, public truth that stripped their arrogance, and emotional restoration that gave Aunty something far more valuable than a holiday, the feeling of being seen. I lean closer to the camera, urging viewers to stand up for the silent warriors in their families, the ones who give, sacrifice, and remain invisible until someone chooses to fight for them. Then I share Auntie's new mantra, the one she repeats now with a quiet smile. Respect yourself loudly so the world can't silence you quietly. Revenge fueled by love isn't destruction. It's transformation. It's healing wrapped in fire. I end with a soft smile, letting the city glow around me. If this story moved you, I say gently, like, share, and subscribe. Someone out there needs a reminder that dignity can always be reclaimed.